Coming up today on Locked On Texas Tech, the white hot Bearcats in town. Buckle up for a bumpy ride.
You are Locked On Texas Tech, your daily podcast on the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Great to be with you again on Locked On Texas Tech on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, always free and available on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts. Now the number one sports podcast network in the world. Thanks as always for making us your first listen. Today's episode brought to you by Mazda. We put that same drive into every detail. Wins define the moment, putting in the work that defines you. Stay tuned for highlights in this week's Moving the Game Forward. There's more to a Mazda because there's more to you with the only Chris Level. I'm Casey Cowan. Chris, great to be back with you. And on today's episode, we are getting ready for a throwdown with the Cincinnati Bearcats at United Supermarkets Arena coming up Tuesday night. Not just any Bearcats, surging Bearcats. Winners of 4 in a row, including Lawrence, Kansas being the scene for a thumping of the Jayhawks. Not something to ever take lightly, which is the same theme I think you will hear running throughout this episode regarding this team. We've got our own things to deal with. Obviously, here in the LBK, Chris, we are well versed in what's happening with JT Toppin and a reorienting of this Red Raider attack. We've seen it now once in motion very successfully against K-State. Want to talk, though, about what Cincinnati has had going on and why they're going to make it difficult for Texas Tech, specifically from a matchup standpoint. There at the USA. And I also want to talk going into this game just about a note that certainly deserves mentioning, including a couple of our favorites. You see it there on the screen, C4, D12, all-timers. D12, who's that? I needed something short to fit it on the screen. That's Donovan Atwell, so I'm just trying to make that a thing now. That's who we're talking about. But I don't know if you've been paying attention out there. Donovan Atwell has already captured an all-time mark for three-point shooting. Christian Anderson in close pursuit of a mark as well. And in another category, as far as sharing the basketball, we're talking about some all-time seasons these guys are putting on. So I just want to take a moment prior to this next ball game to make note of that. But Chris, are you ready for a ball game that we viewed probably much differently just a couple of weeks ago, but now things have changed in Lubbock? Things have changed in Cincinnati. So how are we feeling about this Tuesday night tricky one we got rolling into town?
Yeah, well, you were talking about Donovan Atwell, and it's funny because, I think we touched on this. Like, he had a career or season high in point output against Kansas State. He had 26, which beat the previous season high he had, which was versus Lindenwood. And I'm thinking, like, man, how much life have we lived since Lindenwood, which was the opener? That was the Nolan Groves 16 rebounds a night game, since we're talking statistics and numbers. I think you only had like 6 or 7 guys available. Like, we've had Thanksgiving, we've had Christmas, we've had New Year's, we've had Valentine's, we've had, now the Olympics have come and gone. We've had just all kinds of stuff. This seems like lived a long life between now and that Lindenwood game when Donovan set his previous season high. Yeah. This is, and it, to that point, you're looking at Cincinnati on the schedule a month, 6 weeks ago, and you're like, yeah, okay, dub. Well, I mean, these are long seasons. We always get into that conversation. Unfortunately, there are injuries, as we have seen. There are teams like firings. There are teams that quit, shut it down. There are teams that get hot, all the stuff. Just about 2.5 weeks ago, there was, I think Cincinnati had lost their 4th game and 5th of 5. They had lost 4 or 5. And it may have been against West Virginia right before you were about to play West Virginia, if memory serves. Okay. So either before or after that press conference, Wes Miller got into I don't want to say altercation, but an exchange between some of the fans and things like that. I don't know if you saw this, but it was, you did. Yeah. And so help me out here. 'Cause it was basically like, I get it. I get your frustration. I'm a human too. If I don't blame you for being mad, but I'm a human. Trust me, I'm trying. And it was, he's feeling pressure. He's already on the hot seat. He was very much on the hot seat right there. I think they'd been dealing with injuries and illnesses and all that stuff. Okay,
I'm going to say, Chris, just for posterity's sake, he pulled up a little bit short of another all-time Cincinnati head coaching exchange memory. Senator Tommy Tuberville telling the Bearcat faithful to, quote, go to hell and get a job. I think he believes there's employment available there. I assumed everybody was unemployed in hell. But anyway, just wanted to make sure we were all up on the context.
Yes.
The Bearcats have been through a lot. Their coaches are always coming at them.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, and compared to those two altercations, because one of them was an altercation, this one was just clearly like a very measured. And right. Wes Miller, he's got some spice now. It's not that crap that they put in their chili and put it on noodles up there or anything like that, because it is Skyline Chili Hate Week.
That's right.
Everything
every week.
But since that time, I'll offer up a couple of things to you. They are 4-0. They've won a game by 20 over a team that beat you in UCF. They have won a game by 29, a team that you just beat by 28, Kansas State. Now that was the game, speaking of altercations, that was the game in Manhattan that ultimately led to Jerome Tang's firing. So we're dealing with all kinds of drama here with Cincinnati. Their own exchanges, the exchanges that they're causing and all that. Then they, for whatever reason, they come home and they beat Utah by 4. And then they go to Fog Allen, and they did not pay heed to all that enter. They just decided to just lay the smackdown on poor Kansas. And just like to the point where I saw the score on Saturday, I was like, yeah, my internet's broken. Or like the platform, I had to go check Yahoo and then ESPN and whatever. It's like something's jacked up in somebody's back end of their system. This can't be right. No, it was right. To the point that Bill Self was like, yeah, we got our ass kicked. I mean, he just went over it. And they asked him, well, Darren Peterson played a bunch of minutes. And he's like, no, we're looking for positives, are we? So, okay, well, I guess we'll take that as one. But anyway, it caused this whole – bottom line is Cincinnati's hot. If you want any indication into how hot they are, and we talk about these analytics and these metrics and all this, there are in the last 2.5 weeks, so in this sample size of them going 4-0, there are only 3 teams in the country that have reached an efficiency rating in the top 16 in the country on offense and defense. So you're top 16 with what you're doing on both ends of the floor. And so I'm clear, defensively, Cincinnati's pretty much always been there, okay? It's offensively they struggle. They score in the 50s and the 60s, and it's a grind. So the 3 teams are Cincinnati, Michigan, and Duke. That's it.
Of course.
They are in really big-time company. So, yeah, and it's because they're just hammering people right now. Mustafa Cham and then Baba Miller. Baba Miller's an NBA guy. He's going to be likely a first-round draft pick. Jizzle James, who missed the first month-ish of their season. And so maybe Wes Miller's on the hot seat. Maybe he's not on it. They're still 15-12 overall, and they're, 500 in the league? So this is dangerous this evening. I mean, very dangerous. And I'd be lying if I told you that the 6 o'clock tip part of it in a non-Saturday game with a bunch of people in there didn't concern me greatly. It's the same for the same reason that you played Arizona State at 9 o'clock and 10 o'clock Central Time, 9 o'clock local time in a weird environment there that I think, and people go, how can you, that's just the way it works, man. I don't care, what team you are and all that stuff. So anyway, there you go.
I'm kind of wondering specifically about what you've talked matchup-wise about with this Bearcat front court and Texas Tech's front court. We know now absent JT Toppin, and it seems like that's really where some strength is there for Cincinnati. And as you just mentioned there, defensively for the Bearcats, that's what typically is showing up, I think, most often just in the opportunities I've had to see them play this year. And specifically as it relates to Tech, being the long bombers that they are and what we've seen three-point shooting-wise, which we will get back to coming up in just a moment. Chris, some of these percentages that Cincinnati is putting up or forcing the opponent to put up from beyond the arc are kind of all eye-popping over this stretch. 22%, 33, 24, 26, 28% for their last 5 opponents. And these are on some big attempts days, 27, 25, 23, 21. I'm kind of wondering if that maybe is a byproduct of some resistance on the inside, possibly as far as the attempts, but also is there a little sliver of a silver lining here? Because I know on the surface you hear, man, tough front court. We're without JT Toppin. But I'm kind of thinking also about what Tech's been able to do from long range, and maybe that's different than what the opponents have been able to do in a recent stretch. What do you make of the inside out here for Texas Tech and Cincinnati? Because clearly JT Toppin the headline, but there's a lot more at play, I think, maybe perimeter oriented.
Yeah, this really puts – well, they already were, but even more so now because this is what the matchup will dictate, really puts Luke Bomboye and Josiah Mosley and Mariel and Lawan Watts much more into the limelight now because Bill Self talked about this the other day. Flory Badunga is one of the best big men in the country. I mean, watching him up close, what he does defensively, watching him in other games – I mean, I don't know if he's the best big man, but boy, he could play on my team anytime, just the way he plays on both ends of the floor. And Bill Self was like, the problem when you play Cincinnati is he can only guard one of those dudes. Okay, so Cham or Miller, so point is Luke is going to get one assignment. Lawan Watts probably going to get the other. What does that look like exactly? And you're absolutely going to have Josiah Mosley and Mariel, and they're going to have to do their part here because I think those guys combined for, I don't know, 50-something points and a whole bunch of this and a whole bunch of that in Fog Allen against what I think is a really good team that this committee feels like is a 3 seed, one of the top 3 seeds in the country. And you did it at their place, and you tapped them out. Okay, just wasn't on the bingo card. Was not expecting that. The thing about the 3-point shot, the perimeter part, one, I know you're talking about their defensively, how they've held teams to this and that.
Yeah.
Cincinnati doesn't really rely on the 3 as much as a lot of teams, but they did hit 12 makes against Kansas. So it was very much inside out offensively, but I think you're asking about defensively. I'm not worried about that as much with Texas Tech, and here's why.
First, today's episode brought to you by Mazda's moving the game forward. For those who show there's more to the score than what's on the screen. Today's spotlight is on Donovan Atwell with a season high 26 points on Saturday, including 6 made 3-pointers, giving him a record 100 made 3-pointers this season, passing Corey Carr, who has owned the single season record of 94 since the 96-97 season. And it's performance like that reminds us of what it really takes to raise the bar. Competitive fire, true grit, and dialing in every detail. And Mazda puts that same passion into every model. There's more to a Mazda because there's more to you. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel, and the Winter Games are officially here. And if you're anything like us, you're locking in for events you only get to see on the biggest stage every 4 years. And that's why following the Winter Games on FanDuel just makes sense. From medal counts to individual events to finding your angle on the sports you care about most, FanDuel gives you more ways to stay connected to the action. The drama of curling, where the intensity keeps ratcheting up, or speed skating races decided by mere inches. FanDuel electrifies the entire Olympic experience from start to finish. The Winter Games are on, and there's no better way to follow than with FanDuel. FanDuel, play your game.
You're asking about defensively. I'm not worried about that as much with Texas Tech, and here's why. UCF, this is more of a get to the free throw line, get downhill. They don't heavily rely on the 3. Kansas State doesn't, because PJ Haggerty is more of a get to the free throw line. I'm going to get fouled and all that. Utah's not really good at anything. They don't have any identity or hang their hat on anything. And then Kansas, that's been the knock on Kansas, is they don't shoot the 3 very well. So part of that is a product of who they have played. But I think you'll be able to get enough good looks off from behind the arc. The problem will become if you're not on that night or tonight, if you're having to rebound those, because of the size and length that you're dealing with when it comes to some of these folks that are playing for the Bearcats, which is a real animal, by the way. I just want, I know that it's not a mythical creature. There's no K in it. It's just bear, cat squished together. And it's this little gnarly creature that's kind of like it's got a little skunk, a little, wildcat in there, and you kind of whatever, anyway. So just as an aside.
Yeah, you have to be a real idiot to spell Bearcat with a K. Surely nobody would ever do that.
Some do.
Some do.
Yeah.
I really like this for Texas Tech, Chris, as a follow-up to what we saw on Saturday, because you're looking at total opposites as far as programs coming to your building. And maybe it was nice to have a headless rig coming to town that's just a mess, and you could take it out on them to the tune of 28 points. But I kind of like the fact that you've got a team that is keeping everybody on edge right now, and as you just outlined there, keeping company with Duke and Michigan most recently as far as some things analytically. That's going to get your attention. But I like this challenge and obviously opportunity for Texas Tech, given what the makeup is right now, because I think there's something following what we saw on Saturday that needs to be really challenging to this team. I don't know, I'm not trying to suggest there's obviously the whole thing is a big challenge trying to replace JT Toppin, but it was it was a feel good thing Saturday, and pats on the back and, hey, we're all okay. And we're going to continue to hoop and all this stuff. And reality is still out there. So I kind of like this, even at 6:00 on a Tuesday night. I kind of like this thing where you better get back and you're going to have to grind it out and you're going to have to self-start, and we better not be sleepy at 5:55 and, all that stuff. And it's in your building still. So you've got plenty of reason to feel good about your opportunity here. But I sort of like the dynamic as far as just the process that I guess they're going through right now, trying to reestablish themselves as a team. Well,
you just hope that Cincinnati comes in feeling great about themselves and all that in a way, because maybe you can, but your intensity or your energy, or phrase it however you want, better be at a 10, because this is a program that is not in the bracket. You firmly are. You are in the midst of you're playing two different games, and there's two different battles going on.
First, today's episode brought to you by Indeed. And hiring isn't just about finding somebody willing to take the job. It's about finding the right person with the right background who can actually make a hand in moving your business forward. And if you want candidates who match what you're looking for, Indeed sponsored jobs is the only move to make. Instead of hoping the right person stumbles across your post randomly, Indeed helps you match with quality candidates by boosting your job listing to the people who fit your specific criteria, whether it's a skill set, specific certifications, location, or more. And that saves massive time because you're spending less energy sorting through mismatches and focusing only on those candidates who are actually a fit. Here's proof in the pudding that says it all. In the minute I've been talking to you, companies just like yours have made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching and more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes with Indeed sponsored jobs. And right now, Locked On Texas Tech listeners will get a $75 sponsored job credit to help get your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. That's Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring, do it the right way with Indeed.
There's two different battles going on. You are simply playing to try to win and hold the line, maybe, as we talked about yesterday afternoon, whereas they're trying to play their way on the line. The TCUs, the West Virginias, they may be a bit ahead of Cincinnati on the last four out in the bubble conversation, but Cincinnati's trying to play their way into so your point is you're going to get their best shot. They're desperate. They need it much more worse than you do. So you better match it, and you better understand what's coming your way. And they've got legit talent. Because they've dealt with some injuries, and they're kind of feeling like you were a couple 3 weeks ago when you finally get Mosley back, and you feel like, my boy, you can kind of exhale. Maybe it took them a bit. And now it's like, okay, this is finally our team. Well, the results have been pretty good, at least in the last couple of weeks, because they've got the Red Raiders. They're home against Oklahoma State, home against BYU, and they travel to TCU. Theoretically, those are 4 winnable games for them based on when you get them, who, the fact that you get Tech with no JT Toppin, you get BYU at home. A trip to TCU is going to be a bit tricky because those are similar bubble type teams. Point is, you better understand what's in the opposing locker room tonight, because if you don't, I just think, so, and yeah, you'll have to be ready for what it's going to take, because I just don't expect you to win 172 again, and I felt like, as you talked about, Cowan, the therapy, the catharsis that you went through, it's much easier in a juiced up building on a Saturday afternoon, fresh off of all that news, as opposed to, okay, we got to do this again. And now we're on a weeknight, and is it going to be full? Is it going to be, that's just kind of how
this other team's feeling themselves.
Exactly.
Big time.
Yeah.
I may be stupid, but I like it from a team perspective overall. I don't think there's any made of that, but you get the idea. I like it from a team perspective overall. I also like it from a front court standpoint, as we've already talked about. The battle that they're going to be in for among the group of Bomboye, Mosley, Akintok, it's going to be tough. It's going to be black and blue, and I'm sure there's going to be some ups and downs. But I hope that they are going to be better off for whatever plays out Tuesday night specifically in that area, hopefully as a team as well, and hopefully it all comes with a nice and tidy dub.
Because you will, regardless of how you get this done, if you win this is much more impressive basketball-wise, standing-wise, numbers-wise, and everything you want to come up with compared to what you did on Saturday.
Yeah,
I don't care that you put up 100 or that you had a good time and that it was good. It was a good feeling for you and I. Basketball-wise, this will be very difficult to do. And if you do it, whether it's by 1 or by 30, it doesn't matter. It also speaks to what it may look like on Saturday when you go to Ames, Iowa, and you go against Josh Jefferson and some of these bigs for Iowa State. There wasn't a whole lot of resistance for Kansas State compared to what you're about to start seeing here in a little bit. So You can glean a lot of takeaways from a really solid effort, but one way or the other, that's a two-way street. Like, remember that good feeling we had on Saturday?
Oh yeah,
I miss it. Where is it? I'm searching for it. So, but again, if you get it done this evening, and regardless of how, I think there'll be a lot of takeaways here that you can kind of roll with going forward in the next couple of weeks. So, anyway, we'll see what we get. And can we talk about how you and I should not be? We're guilty of a lot, but we're definitely not guilty of trying to suggest that Texas Tech is better without JT Toppin. Did somebody misconstrue that somewhere?
No, it wasn't better. It was actually a text asking, or am I hearing y'all talk about Texas Tech as a more well-rounded team post JT Toppin? Okay. I texted that person back and said, you can call it whatever you want, just don't say they're better. So I don't know what they're interpreting. I don't know what was said. We're not better. So that's all I really need to hear. And
okay. Different. Yes. Different. And I think you're trying to define different, but I think the best way to phrase that is I don't think you can have the same kind of ceiling without JT as with him, because again, Arizona, Houston, Duke, all that with JT. Although I think people have forgotten how good Christian Anderson was in the latter part of that Duke game. He never has got the credit that he deserves for that. That was Lawan Watts fouled out with 10 or 11 minutes to go. That was a CA show. But maybe there's some things that some of these other players can do, of which we've talked about, some of these bigs, that we haven't seen yet, or we weren't going to see if not for what's happened. So maybe call it well-rounded, call it different, call it, hey man, it's more balanced. It's when we spread the floor more. We're doing some different things with the pick and roll. Better? I don't know. More well-rounded.
I do not. Chris, go ahead and join me on that. It's what you said on a recent episode. There's going to be guys that have different opportunities now, and hopefully they make good on those opportunities. But it doesn't mean they're really being held back with the Big 12 Player of the Year cramming at home 8 trips out of 10 down the floor.
Yeah.
No, I'm fine with that too. If that's
What I do appreciate though is that people get a little glimpse. This is the beauty of sports and sports fans and like how we emotionally invest. What I do appreciate is that because I always say keep hope alive, right? I've just said this for years. Because if you take hope away from somebody, it's like they've got nothing left, literally nothing. If there is no hope that I'm going to be healthier, richer, happier, whatever, it's like if you take all that away from me, it's like, okay, what's the point of anything at that point? But what I hear people texting in when they say that is they're wanting to squint a little bit and go, huh, maybe there's a little hope here instead of
bad.
Yeah, instead of like, oh, damn, I don't want to watch.
I'm fine with that.
I completely agree. And for that, I applaud you and lean into that. Hopefully it can keep going. Hopefully. There's that word again, right?
Look, we should be seeing these guys at the best we've ever seen them because it's the biggest calling of their basketball career so far, I would think, for a lot of them.
1,000% it
on
is.
The best team they've been on.
In all cases.
The biggest void to fill.
Yep. And they're playing with the best point guard they have ever played with. Any of them. They're probably coached by the best coach and coaches they've ever been coached by in every situation. And these are the most important minutes to this point that any of them will have played kind of going forward, including starting tonight.
I do, before we get out of here, I've got to pause for Red Raiders celebration. A couple more numbers to emphasize. Some of you out there may have already heard some of this leaving the last ball game because we've got an new all-time record holder for three-point field goals made within a season, Chris. And this is a 20-year mark, give or take, that has stood and has now fallen at the hands of Donovan Atwell. He reaches 100 made three-pointers for the season on Saturday and still going, obviously, with that number. That tops Corey Carr's all-time mark of 94, going back to the 96-97 season. Corey Carr's got the top two seasons on the books. He made 92 in 95 and 96. Well, those are both going to fall, I think, and to two different Red Raiders here because you got Atwell already at the top of the list. And here comes Christian Anderson with 91 made on the year. He's right now in the 3 spot, one behind that second largest or most productive season and 3 behind the top or previous mark of 94. Hope I've confused everybody sufficiently there. C4 and D12 making a lot of three-pointers. That's the gist. And may I add, Christian Anderson on another record hunt whenever it comes to sharing the basketball, an all-time assists mark, likely within, I think, his reach. And I don't know if I necessarily saw this one coming, Chris, but as we sit here with Christian Anderson today, Christian Anderson is a guy with 200 assists on the season. And as we look at an all-time mark for Texas Tech, Anderson now only behind Elijah Hawkins and John Robertson whenever it comes to season production. Hawkins at the top with 226, Robertson next with 212. Thinking that Anderson may be sniffing an all-time mark in that category as well, man. Not often you get to celebrate records falling, plural, but we're going to be doing some of that this year.
Yeah, Christian is just he's a dime dropper. I mean, that's what he does, man. And like, I don't think anybody remember the questions about, and we were right there, like kind of wondering what it was going to look like. Are you better off with him on the ball than off of it? The dumbassery that probably came out of my mouth, even just kind of wondering aloud as we talk through it, is just comical at this point now that we've seen what we've seen, because he's been so good. And Donovan, man, I mean, you start talking Corey Carr, I mean, that's a second round pick by the Bulls, I think, if memory serves. Maybe it was a first round pick, but I think he got picked by the Chicago Bulls. Mm-hmm. His name, by the way, it's up there in the old Ring of Honor or whatever they call it in the USA for standing for permanently. He came back, what was it, a year or two ago, and that's heavy steps for Donovan Atwell to and the game has changed. The game has changed. It's played a little bit differently now because you've got two guys that are basically close to breaking that record in the same year. It's just it's been amazing watching these guys because in no other time before did you ever feel so good when one of those guys shoots it and you just almost feel like it's going in. And they come in a variety of different ways. A lot of times with Atwell, it's the post doubles, it's the penetrate, and you spray it out to the perimeter, and he's just sitting there, and he doesn't need a lot of time and space, and he's the lefty, and he gets it off. Christian's, though, it always is at a weird time sometimes. Like he may just roll up at the beginning, and nobody may touch the ball, and he'll just pull it. Pull, and like, and when it doesn't go in, Grant's like, what are we doing? When it goes in, he's like, they starts looking at the bench like, okay, what are we calling on defense here? I mean, that's how that goes. Or he gets it off the pick and roll. It's just funny because I bet if you look at their shot chart, Atwell's are wing corner, whereas Christian's are most of them are at the top of the key or close to it. And yet equally as deadly, right? So pick your poison, because poison will kill you.
Absolutely. And it's kind of a race between those two. I mean, Christian would have to really get hot and maybe fill it up one night where Atwell didn't, but they're not far from one another. 9 separating them here with a handful of regular season games and then some to go. So we'll be curious to see if we've got both at the top of the record book at the end of the year and maybe which one would come out on top. But Donovan Atwell, at least for now, period of time, is the new record holder. We'll see if that changes again before the end of the season. Loving the ride so far and looking forward to more with those guys. Chris, appreciate your time as always, man. Enjoy the broadcast. We will reconvene on the other side for better or worse. Hopefully we're talking another win. This one a vital one whenever it comes to holding your ground, as we talked about this week for seeding purposes. So we'll see how it plays out, and we'll catch up on the other side, man. We'll see you then.
Yeah, I really hope to see as many people there, just a few more times to see these guys play at all. And you don't know what the future holds, but it's definitely going to be Donovan Atwell's. But, this may be the last few times you get to see Christian Anderson in a Texas Tech uniform in this building. You just don't know. And as we're sitting here laying it out, he's one of the best that's ever done it here, period. Anyway, hope to see everybody. Get out of jail free card, get out of work free card, whatever you need, man. Just go find you a card, get there, and we'll talk to everybody after this one concludes.
Some places have an all-day happy hour, Chris. Do you know that?
It's happy hour somewhere.
It's not just
beer 30.
Anymore. That's right. Breakfast? Yeah. Anyone? We'll see you at the arena. Enjoy the ball game. We'll catch up after that. Stay safe out there, everybody. And, of course, get subscribed on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts so you never miss an episode. Thanks to the everydayers for always riding along in the Matador Mob as well. All the timers, I wouldn't forget about you either. Hit our show notes and find a link to a free 14-day trial if you're interested in joining the mob. Your direct line to Chris and myself with one-on-one text sent straight to your phone. For Chris, I'm Casey. Thanks as always for the time. Hope to see you back for the next round on Locked On Texas Tech.